Hey there, Choose Life Nation. This is Dallas Cohn, the Rebound Coach from thereboundcoach.com, and you are watching or listening to another episode of the Rebound Coach Live. I'm really happy that you're here today because we're in some desperate times. And as the saying goes, desperate times calls for desperate measures. And if you are watching this live with me today, we are one day from the election here in America. And if you are here in America, you know this election was a pretty big deal, and there's lots to talk about. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about that, but overall, what to do when you're in desperate times and giving some strategies for desperate times, whether that is desperate time in our country, in your state, in your region, in your local area, in your neighborhood, in your family, or with yourself, because we can be in some desperate times all by ourselves. If this is your first time at the reboundcoach.com, or I'm sorry, this is your first time watching the Rebound Coach Live, I'm really, really glad that you're here with me today. There's a lot of places to spend your time on the internet and a lot of places to be. And I think it's amazing that you found space and time to share with me. If it's your first time meeting me, I'm really glad that you're here today. And I'll tell you a little bit about myself, how we got to be spending this time together today. Here's the headline, guys. I was married 10 years to a man who wanted me dead. And that doesn't make a whole lot of sense for someone who had the background I had. I was raised in a Christian home. I had godly parents. They loved God and loved each other, were married for a lifetime, and gave a very good example. I believe they did the best they could, like most parents do, right? At the same time, I was molested from age 8 to age 16, and that radically affects, number one, how you see yourself, because those are identity forming years, how you relate to God in a household of faith, and how you relate to men. So fast forward, I met the man that I married and eventually divorced, and there were definitely red flags, definitely reasons not to be together. And at the same time, I was a praying woman then, just like I am now. And I believed God's answer was yes. Those were a different set of desperate times. And because of that, I believed that whatever came, we'd outlast it, we'd overcome it. God would swoop in and save the day. And all I had to do was be a good wife and do my part and pray. And that's what I set out to do. And for the larger part of 10 years, over 9 years, we got into a cycle of what I call coping and crisis. So there was trouble right away. There was not like a honeymoon period. And then I didn't have language for what I was experiencing to call it abuse, although that's what it was. Trouble came right away and never quite left. And that cycle of coping and crisis was you never quite get to good or happy or satisfied. You just trudge along and you do your best to survive, and you do your best to follow his rules, and you do your best to walk on eggshells and not trip the wire, except the rules keep changing. And no matter what you do, there's this crisis that comes. And there was a different crisis for us each time, but everything blew up. End of 2019, beginning of 2020, he had left for this other woman. And y'all, there was serial adultery. So there was adultery throughout the entire marriage. But at that time, he actually left for another woman. And I found out the very next day that he and that woman had been plotting my murder. And I wish that was fake. And I wish that was like a movie thing, but it was real. It was really my life, and it was really happening to me. And I had important questions to answer, like how the heck did we get here? How did we get here? And more importantly, what do I do now? That was a very desperate time in my life. It was the most chaotic time I had ever experienced to date. And through a series of divine events, I have no other way to describe it to you except to say divine events, supernatural events, I'm still alive. You and I are getting to have this time together. I have the sacred privilege of raising my children, and we continue to learn and grow and unlearn and relearn. and choose life. And the way that I kind of share the story today is I could allow the identity that my ex-husband had planned for me, and if I'm honest, the one I had agreed to, because when we don't make changes, we're saying that the status quo is okay. And that's what I did for a long time. So I could allow that identity to tell me who I was, how I was allowed to express myself as a woman, a wife, a child of God, how many days I had left on the planet. He had a death date in mind for me that he actually wrote down in the back of his Bible, of all places. Or I could choose life. And so I wrote a book out of all of that. It's my second book. And the name of the book is, ooh, see it over here, I Choose Life. Rewrite your love story and change your legacy. And it is my story, but it's not only my story. If anything in what I just shared with you resonates with you, or you're thinking about someone you care about, you need to get this book. It is gifting time. We're about to be in holiday season. It is gifting time. I highly recommend this as a gift for someone that you care about, or for yourself, caring about yourself. You can find this at thereboundcoach.com/book. That is thereboundcoach.com/book. You can get one of these right here, and I will sign it for you, write your love note, and mail it off to you. Or you can get one from Amazon, or you can get an ebook copy. All of that information is at thereboundcoach.com/book. Okay, commercial over. Let's talk. So, yesterday was the election. And no matter which way it goes, no matter which side you were on or which person you voted for, everyone said this is the most serious election ever. And if the opposing person wins, everything's going to be horrible. And depending on which way you voted, folks are either very relieved today or they are very afraid today. And I'm going to tell you personally, I didn't like either choice. Personally, I didn't like the character of one candidate, and I didn't like the where the other candidate stood on certain issues. And so, to me, and normally I can, get around. Well, this is the lesser of the two evils, but not even that did I feel like was okay today, or yesterday, I'd say. It was really tough for me as a voter, but watching and listening to social media and to the news and to all the people, talking. And no matter which extreme you fell in, it was because you believed that a candidate had a lot of power. For the people that are mourning today and the people that are afraid, really afraid that the candidate that was voted into office would or is going to cause a lot of damage and a lot of harm to people, and to make life difficult or scary or negative. They believe that, and that's causing this concern and this fear and this mourning. And the other side, if your candidate won yesterday, you might feel really excited because you feel like this candidate is going to make life so much better and improve conditions and change laws in the favor that you feel like they should go. And that's going to make everything better. What I would say is, like many things, the truth is somewhere in the middle. I don't believe that any candidate has sole power to make life miserable or to make life meaningful. They just don't have that much power. We, on the other hand, can create circumstances for ourselves that will make life miserable or make life meaningful. Not just for ourselves, for those of us that are heading households, you can create that atmosphere for your household to make life miserable or to make life meaningful. We have that power for ourselves, for our households, and for our areas of influence, whether that's a work team, whether that's your home team, your family, whether that's your church family. You have power to make that atmosphere miserable or meaningful. And that doesn't take away the responsibility of leadership, family leadership or church leadership or work leadership or, governmental leadership, right? It doesn't take away that responsibility, but it doesn't absolve us of our responsibility. So I would encourage anyone, whether you are excited because you feel like somebody's going to make changes or you're scared because you feel like somebody's going to make changes, understand that your changes are the most powerful impact to your life, more than any candidate ever could. And I would just encourage you to make the changes you need for your life to be meaningful and have purpose and have joy and have pleasure and have the things that you were hoping that a candidate brought to you, you can bring to you. And I encourage you to do that for yourself. Okay. Are you in desperate times? Is our nation in desperate times? Okay. So whether you're thinking about the economy, if you're thinking about the racial divide, if you're thinking about right to life versus right to choice, one or both. Okay. What about your personal desperate place? Sometimes we're in desperate places personally. Okay. If you experience abuse in a marriage or a relationship of any kind, that is a desperate place. That is a place of desperation and a place of fear and a place of torment. I was very hopeless for a long time. I was suicidal for a long time and just felt invisible. And I felt like there was no good option, right? Even folks that are leaving abusive situations, you may find yourself in a financial desperate place where you just don't feel like any option is a good option. And everything looked like it's going to be bad. It's going to be bad if I do this. It's going to be bad if I do that. And there's no place to turn. A lot of people find themselves in that space where this just nothing is going to, it feels like nothing's going to work. And I know I've been in that place. I've been in that place financially. I've been in that place emotionally. I've been in that place with my business and just felt like it doesn't matter what I do, it's not going to work. That just feeling of hopelessness and that feeling of desperation. Like I can't fix this. The situation hurts and I'm powerless to fix it. And that's a scary place to be. Mentally, emotionally, spiritually, it's a scary place to be. So if you find yourself there, what do you do? What do we do? I was reminded of a story from the Bible and I went to go look at it. You can find this in 2 Kings chapter 6 and 7. I read both of those and I recommend you do too. They're easy to read chapters. And it's a story about a time of desperation. And this was a geographical, a city, a country, a couple of countries dealing with some desperation. Okay. So once upon a time in 2 Kings, there was a war and a famine. So like one country attacked Israel, like did a sneak attack, and that caused a famine. So they had an economic crisis. Okay. So like when we talk about the cost of bread and eggs getting high, and we talk about the price of gas getting high, like it was like that, except outrageous. So much so that people were cannibalizing and eating each other's sons. Like the king of Israel like walked down the street and this woman was like, "Hey, help me out." And he's like, "If God can't help you, what in the world do you think I can do for you?" Like that's the kind of level of desperation they were in. And the woman's like, "You got to help me." And the king's like, "Okay, what?" And the woman's like, "Well, this other mom came to me and said, let's cook and eat your son today, and then we'll cook and eat my son tomorrow. And we cooked and ate my son last night, and then she hid her son, so we couldn't eat him." Like that's where people were. They were cannibalizing and eating children. Now, I happen to live in America, and I haven't seen that level of desperation. Thank God. However, not saying it doesn't happen. I'm saying I haven't seen it. But they were in a pretty desperate place, and people were starving to death. Okay, people were starving and starting to eat each other. Like, it was rough. Okay, so there was attacks, and Elisha was the prophet that they're talking about in Second Kings, and he was like making moves. Okay, so there was these four lepers. Lepers had leprosy. Like, it was like the stigma that AIDS had when it first became popular. Doesn't have that stigma anymore, but back when it started, it was like you can catch AIDS by like looking at somebody or sneezing or okay. So it was like that. Leprosy was highly contagious, and they would put lepers outside of town. Like, it was like COVID, right? You couldn't spread it, so they would quarantine you outside of the town. So these four lepers were starving, like everyone was starving. And they're like, listen, if we stay here on the outskirts of town by ourselves starving, we're going to die. If we go into town where there's a famine, we're going to die. And even if there wasn't a famine, like, the people would kill you because you can't go into town with leprosy. Like, you're going to spread your leprosy. Like, it's like COVID. Like, you must be quarantined. I said, listen, okay, if we sit here, we're going to die. If we go into town, we're going to die. Why sit here until we die? So they said, well, we're going to go into the enemy's camp, and we're going to put ourselves at their mercy. And if they accept us, we'll live. And if they kill us, we'll die. We've got nothing to lose, which I think is a powerful place to be. So for those of us that feel like we are in a desperate place, if you are afraid of what the candidate voted in might do, and I know that no one wants to admit fear, but underneath this sorrow, underneath this angst is fear. Let's just be honest with ourselves. We are afraid of what the candidate might do or not do. Okay. So if you find yourself in that place of, if I stay here, it's not going to be good. And if I go, it's also not going to be good. So what do? Just say, all right, listen. In the case in the Bible, they say, look, we're just going to go to enemy's camp. And if they accept us, great, we live. And if they don't, we die. We have nothing to lose. I would encourage and admonish you in your desperate place. You've got nothing to lose. You've got nothing to lose. So let's take a pause before I go into strategies for you. Let's talk about why we don't go for it. And what is it, right? What is it? For me, it is some business things that I could be doing and haven't pulled the trigger. It might be something else for you. You might have just something stirring in your heart, a business, a ministry, a relationship, a person you want to go talk to, a risk you just haven't taken, and an important conversation that you haven't had, that you need to have, that you just haven't gathered up the courage to do. And what's your next step? What's your next step? Let's look at why we don't. Let's look at why we don't move forward. Number one, what if it doesn't work? What if it doesn't work? What if I look stupid? What if other people see me look stupid? What if I put out all of this effort to do this thing and it doesn't work, and I lose my investment, my money investment, my time investment, my emotional investment, my mental investment? What if my family laughs at me? What if, they told me it wasn't going to work and I did it anyway, and then it didn't? So what if it doesn't work? Okay. What if? Like, what if those things happen? What if it doesn't work? And then what? So let's actually look at what happens if it doesn't work. You go back to the drawing board. You might be embarrassed. You might not be, right? They might say, I told you so. They might not. But I can tell you what would happen, even if it doesn't work, whatever the it is, even if it doesn't work, you will definitely learn and you definitely have the opportunity to grow. When my book, I Choose Life, and our movement of choosing life is not only about leaving abusive relationships, although it definitely is about that, but not only about that. Choosing life is choosing growth instead of status quo, choosing new instead of familiar. And that can be a very scary place. And it can be like, oh no, I'm not sure if this is going to work. But what I can tell you is if you're in a desperate place, if you're in a desperate time, that means what you've got going is also not working. If what you got going is not working, then the opportunity is that something could work. And even if what you tried doesn't work, it's better than just sitting. Just like just like the lepers in the Bible story. If we sit here, we're going to die. Why sit here until we die? That's literally what they said to themselves. Why sit here until we die? We've got nothing to lose. We've got nothing to lose. And I would say to you, if you feel like you're in a desperate time, you have nothing to lose. Okay, so number one reason why we don't go for it is we're afraid to fail. The other side, we don't go for it because we're afraid to succeed. Wait, what do you mean? How could that be possible? I'm not afraid to succeed. I want to succeed. Oh, I really do. Okay. We're wired, even biologically wired, for something called homeostasis, which is like a big fancy word for like status quo. Like we're wired for what we're used to and what we're familiar with. And it's scary when there's something new. It's scary when there's something like this might not work or it might work. So even if it does work, let's say we go for that big promotion, if you go for that new relationship, or you go for um, healing for yourself, or you go to that new event, you try that new food, you take that leap and take that risk for anything, and it does work. What's the cost if it does work? That means I have to change my perception. If I've told myself I'm a failure, I have conflicting evidence, right? If I told myself things can never get better and they get better, I have to go back on that, right? And that can be scary. And that seems like, what do you mean? When we have attached ourselves to an identity, even if the identity is negative, the identity is familiar. An identity of struggle, an identity of fear, an identity of loss, an identity of negativity, of melancholy, of hopelessness, an identity of fear. If we have attached ourselves to it, having the opposite show up is like, I'm not sure I can handle that. If you are attached to an identity of depression or sadness or loss, the idea of having joy or satisfaction or fulfillment are scary prospects. And if we believe that a certain circumstance would bring that, we subconsciously avoid that circumstance. Even if that's what we say we want, let's use money or love, because those are pretty big draws of the mind and heart. If we say, look, if I do this and it succeeds, I'm going to be wealthy. Or if I do this and succeed, I'm going to have love, right? And those are things we attach a lot of value to and a lot of fulfillment to. Now, the truth is, money doesn't bring satisfaction, and relationship doesn't necessarily bring satisfaction, but we think they do, right? So we choose satisfaction. No matter what's going on, you can make that choice. Neither here nor there. So we attach a lot of meaning to those things, and we might avoid circumstances that would bring it if we think I can't handle that. So that's really a mental shift that we would need to make, right? And those both fear of failure, fear of success, reasons we don't go for it, reasons we don't. But again, if you're in a desperate place, you've got nothing to lose. Why sit there until you die, right? So here are the steps as we're getting ready for 2025. We are so close. We are 2 months away, a little less than 2 months away from 2025. What is it that your heart desires? What is it that you've been needing to take action on and you just haven't? And how long will you decide to sit there? And I'll ask you the question that the lepers asked themselves: why sit there until you die? Why sit there until it's over, until you have no choice? When you do have choices and you can make moves, you have the capability, you have the time, and you don't have to do it alone. Okay? So, what are the steps? Take steps to choose life. Take steps to move forward. Take steps to grow. If that is whatever it is. And here's what I would say: if you're watching this live or you're watching this on the replay, no matter which platform, I encourage you to put into the comments what it is you need to take action on. Okay, all the resolutions that you're not thinking about yet because it's not Thanksgiving. What I would encourage you to do is not to wait until January to make yourself better, to make your life better. You can do it now. Make a decision today. Move forward today. Does that mean everything is going to be rosy? No, but why sit here until you die? Right? Why sit here until you die? Make moves. Okay? Choose life. Choose life. Choose life. You don't have to do this by yourself. I personally am hosting and facilitating a series of things that I'm calling sacred ceremonies. What is that? It's opportunities for you virtually or in person to grow, heal, learn, and love together. It is creating sacred space for growth, for love, for life. And that takes a shape in several different places. So if you yourself are on a healing journey or you love someone on a healing journey, either coming out of an abusive relationship or coming out of a bad season or looking forward to something beautiful, let's talk. I'm excited to be offering these series of ceremonies that help you heal, help you grow, help you get rid of the old, and prepare yourself for all things new. Even if you're not ready for something like that, I have a couple of virtual opportunities for us to be together in a few healing modalities. If you're looking at Thanksgiving like nobody loves me, and nobody's going to invite me to their house for dinner, I understand, because no one has invited me to their house for dinner for Thanksgiving in several years. And I was feeling a certain type of way about it. Like, I host at my house and I invite people to my house quite often. And folks don't be inviting me to their house. And it makes me feel some type of way. If you're feeling like I was feeling, I have an invitation for you. I'm hosting a Friendsgiving virtual concert. We did a really cool concert for my birthday. If you came to the birthday concert, I want to say thank you. We had a really good time and I loved it so much. I'm going to do it again. So Wednesday, I had to think about it. Wednesday, November 27th. So that is the day before Thanksgiving. The night before, we're going to host a virtual Friendsgiving to spend some time together, to share fun stories, and share the love and feel some warm fuzzies, even if you don't have people around to warm fuzzy with. So I'm offering that. And also for New Year's Eve is another time I just have felt isolated. You know, I have friends, I have people who love me, but they were not getting together for New Year's. And I am not the clubber. Okay. That is not who I am. And I don't even like watching the people club in New York like it's cold and they're drunk. I'm over it. So if you're over it, like I'm over it, and you'd like to do something else I'm hosting a New Year's Eve bash, a virtual one. So no matter where you are, you can party with us. Okay. If you'd like to hear more about that, put in the comments, virtual bash. Put in the comments you want to hear more, and I will connect with you. I'm really excited for you and for us. No matter what's happening politically, economically, socially, no matter what's going on, even in your personal life, we can make a difference. We can choose life. We can choose growth. We can choose love, and we can do it together. I'm happy to support you and to walk alongside in your journey of choosing life. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. I'd love to hear in the comments what you resonated with, what you got out of this. And if there's someone you care about that needs to hear this message, share it. And no matter which platform you are watching this on, I encourage you to subscribe, to like, to share, to be a part of this Choose Life community. Thank you so much again.